I'm Nancy Rosalie. I live and homestead here in Unity, Maine, just across the road from MOFGA. And for the last couple years, I've gardened in the square-foot garden plots here in the North Orchard. And today I'd like to talk about perennial onions. I have really grown to appreciate having onions throughout the year. And I'm going to demonstrate to you how you can have onions growing year-round also. And let's start with chives, because nearly everybody knows what chives are. They'll start early in the spring, so once your storage onions are getting kind of soft, or you just want to use them for cooking, the chives will start coming up, and you can start cutting the chives really early in the spring, and you can let them grow. Now, eventually, the chives will send up flower stalks, and when these are flowering, they're nice and pink, and I like to use these in cooking too, or on my salads. I'll pick the flower heads and I'll sprinkle them on my salads, and they're really tasty. But if you leave them, they'll make seed. Now, what happens with chive seeds is they fall down and the seeds plant themselves next to it. So you could also pick them and save the chive seed and plant them where you want them intentionally, or you could grow them in a little garden inside and get fresh onion greens during the winter. So chives are really wonderful. They do like to be divided occasionally. This batch is going to get divided next spring because it's getting overgrown, and eventually it will play out if it doesn't get divided. And you always know somebody who will take another chive plant, or you could plant them around your orchard trees. When I first moved to Unity, I planted some chives around my apple tree seedling, and I've never had borers in that tree, so I don't know if it keeps the borers away or what, but they're very versatile and you can use a lot of them. So everybody should have chives. They're number one in the perennial onion realm. Next, we're going to talk about bunching onions, and we're going to go to a different part of the garden for that. So the second type of perennial onion that I'd like to talk about are bunching onions, which are scallions. They're later than the chives, but they'll come in before bulbing onions will come in. So they kind of fill that summer gap of fresh onions. When they get planted by seed the first year, they will come up as a single scallion. If you leave them in the ground over the winter, the next year they'll send up a flower stalk, and each scallion from the previous year makes 2 scallions. And indeed, this whole bunch last year was probably just 1 scallion. So they really multiply themselves amazingly. I've been using these second-year scallions all season. I started in the spring and I'm still using them. When the flower head comes up, again, the flowers are usable in salads or as garnish on something. They're very pretty. Or let them go to seed, and then you can plant more for next year. So the third type of perennial onion I like to have, I call top set onions. Some people call them Egyptian onions, and some people call them walking onions. The reason they call them walking onions is the stalks with the sets fall over, the sets will root, and so they kind of walk around in your garden. I call them top set onions just to distinguish that this is where the set on the onion grows. This is not how sets are grown when you buy sets to plant instead of seed, but they are sets. If I take this bulb off and pull the sets apart and plant them in the soil, each one of these will make an onion, make another onion plant. So what I really like about these onions is that in the springtime, they will send up fresh green. So if your bunching onions aren't up, or you want something a little more substantial than the chives, you have the topset onions that you can harvest. But what I really want to show about these onions is that you can eat the bulbs. And look at this bulb. So you have greens in the spring. You can eat the sets. You can eat the bulbs. And these are they're just really tasty onions. So I told you about the perennial onions that I like to grow. These are not perennials, but you should know about these plants. These are second year leeks. Many of us grow leeks and pull them in the fall, or we might leave them in over the winter, mulch them well and leave them in, but pull them first thing in the spring. But this is what happens if you don't pull them in the spring. They go to seed. Aren't these really incredible? They've been so beautiful to watch as they form their seed heads and opened up. I want to leave them to make seed, and then I'll collect the seed and I'll plant some next spring and see if I can get leeks to grow from seed. Amazing. Anyway, aren't they fun?